Now I know that when you guys watch this episode, there's a certain amount of the audience that appreciates a certain amount of salt, and there's a different group that not so much. And with an episode that features the Q&A for the Tumbrill Ranger, the new 300i rework, and subcomponents, you'd think that there was plenty to be salty about. But in fact, it was a lot of good stuff. And it's a fairly sodium-free episode. It was some good shit. So let's get started. Now we start with the Tumbrill Ranger Q&A, which I'm going to abbreviate very heavily because there were a number of questions in there that really had no business being there, and there was a couple that kind of were already answered, but there was some good information. In regards to cargo capacity, it was mistakenly placed at 1.2 SCU when it's actually 0.375 SCU, which may sound like a drastic reduction, but 0.375 SCU is actually the correct value, and it's supposed to be able to, at least on, I believe it's the CV version, carry 3 standard mission boxes. So when you're flying around in space and you have to pick up the little boxes at a mission site or deliver them, whatever, that's the size that you're going to be able to carry. 3 of those on the bike, apparently. So the original one, which would have accounted for 8 of those mission boxes, was an error. Also, there will be a slight amount of movement on the gimbals, on the bespoke gimbals of the combat version, and it is going to be useful as a ground vehicle because there may be some areas that hover bikes have trouble getting into, and it will not have those problems. It will also have a lower signature because it doesn't have gravlev. And apart from that, there may be an issue with steering it because it doesn't look like it was accounted for in the original design, though there is room for a correction there, I feel. So there may be some slight changes in the future to the appearance of the Ranger, or perhaps not. I mean, within the existing frame of the front forks, the lower ones, there is room to create some travel there and to make it so that one fork moves forward, the other fork moves back, and that could account for the turning action on the wheels, but CIG acknowledged it and said that it is something that they are keeping an eye on for when the vehicle goes into production, though when that is currently unknown. Now, next up, we have the 300i rework. Now, we saw the 300i some months ago. We saw a very early iteration of it, and some people made some comments about it, and it appears that CIG took those comments to heart, and the final version of this 300i rework is pretty damn stunning. It's pretty magnificent. The way they've used the space within the interior, the cargo area that lowers down underneath, and the interior space for the pilot, including the living area, is actually quite good. And I know that there are some people out there who do like the original ship, but I really feel that this current iteration of the 300i is superior. And one of the things that I think that is well reflected in the new design is the fact that, Origin is supposed to be this really kind of classy, high-end kind of BMW style manufacturer, and the new interior within the ship with the living spaces and all of that, including a bathroom and a little table to sit at, a bed, all of that, all squeezed into this ship, looks absolutely fantastic. It's very efficient use of space, but at the same time taking into account the fact that this is an Origin ship. It's not an RSI ship. It's not a Drake ship. And so it fits really, really well with the Origin line. And I have to say, 2 thumbs way up. This is an excellent rework of the ship. In fact, in seeing this new revision of the 300, it has definitely put the 300, in my opinion, up a few ticks. Like, I like this. It makes sense. It makes sense with the Origin line. The way they figured out the cargo with the elevator underneath and then a raised platform in the interior living space that accounts for that space underneath where the cargo is stored. It's absolutely fantastic. It resolves a lot of issues with the original design, especially like how do you carry a crate up the ladder into the ship. It fixes all that. And so it's very well done. It's one of these things that, you know, there are some downsides. There are some things that you see in Star Citizen and you're like, what were they thinking there? But then you see something like this and you go, this is responding to feedback. This is a real step forward. And it's just solidly well done. I mean, zero salt involved looking at this thing. I literally looked for something to look at and say, oh, this is dumb, but it all made sense. Even all the custom colors for the interior, a high-end vehicle like that would probably have all those options, just like high-end vehicles of that nature generally have those options in the real world too. So it all made sense to me, and it was one of the highlights of today's episode, of Inside Star Citizen. It was great to see, and it was something that you can look at and say, definitely moving in the right direction. Now, if there was anything about the episode that I wouldn't have been all that hype about, the Inside Star Citizen, was the reveal of the subcomponents in the art, because I looked at it and I went, it kind of looks a little generic. I was hoping that subcomponents were going to be like, if you're going into, say, a power core, well, this is, the reactor housing, and you can replace, titanium with beryllium or something like that, and different ways that you could modify, obviously, the performance of, your shields or your power core or whatever, the things that we're looking forward to for customization. Not because, I think that we're going to get real mathematical values on anything like this. I mean, it's one part of, a myriad of, components to Star Citizen that all have to come together before we can even start to talk about balancing and values and things like that. But I was kind of hoping that it was going to be a little bit more involved, and they did really only show us power core, so there may be different things ahead. I might be jumping the gun a little bit on that, but I found the components to be a little bit samey and a little bit bland, and I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more intricate, like, to use the engine example, like here's the intake, here's the crankshaft, here's the distributor, and it didn't really look like different components of a device. It just looked like little plug and play things. So it's okay for a first iteration, and it's only one system, and it's probably not final, but it did feel a little bit bland to look at, and it was kind of like But apart from that, overall, this week's Inside Star Citizen was pretty decent, and I was kind of hoping for a little bit more ship stuff, but we take what we get. Anyways, that's the show for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.